So here we are again, Mr. Huxtable. How lovely to see you. How are you?
Well, do you know what? I'm very good because our backdrops today actually actually are accurate because the sun is shining outside and everything feels good in the world, doesn't it? It's pretty, you know, this is going out just before Easter, so happy Easter, everybody. I hope you have a nice break. The sun is out. I put a post on LinkedIn which I'm grateful you liked on Tuesday. I was out walking the dog. The sun was coming up over the hills. We're coming out of lockdown. I thought everything is all right with the world, so I'm good. Long answer. How are you?
Yeah, no, Gertlash up this neck of the woods in Wiltshire. Yeah, it's all Gertlash in it. The countryside's looking beautiful. And you know, everybody's out and about. A bit of more of a spring in the step. You know, customers ready to spend some more money.
I know, but do you know what I'm really looking forward to because the sun's out? I can't wait to stand in a pub beer garden and have a glass of cider.
Yeah. Well, that'll be good because in a couple of weeks, in a few weeks' time, at the end of April, we'll be doing our cider and CX.
Yes, nicely done.
Facebook.
Yeah, I should do it from a pub beer garden.
Well, hey, that's a good idea.
Yes.
We shouldn't actually have these brainstorming ideas whilst we're recording this.
No, that's true.
Sorry, listeners, getting a glimpse into our minds that we put stuff together according onto the alcohol.
You don't want a glimpse into our minds. My God. Anyway,
moving on.
What are we talking about today?
So you interviewed somebody, apparently.
I did.
Who did you interview?
Yes, I did. So I was very, very lucky to chat to the owners, one of the owners of Blackadon Farm Cottages, which is a holiday business based down near Mere in South Devon, in a place called Ivybridge, about 5 or 6 miles outside of Plymouth. And Marcus Bailey, who you will see in a little while, it talks us through. This is a business. Marcus and Ryan's business is really in the impact zone. So, you know, we've been talking the last few weeks about where businesses find themselves. You'll hear how Marcus has really thought about his client journey or his guest journey from the inception of the business and the creation of the creation of the cottages, through to how he executes, or how they execute it now. So take a look.
Here we go.
Well, I'm delighted to be joined by Marcus Bailey. Marcus is a co-owner of Blackadon, the cottages at Blackadon Farm. So welcome, Marcus. Welcome to Customer Experience R&R. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Marcus, you've got a really exciting and award-winning business. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to and what you've been doing at Blackadon.
Okay, so in terms of the award that you referenced, we've just been announced by Visit Devon as the best new tourism business in the county, and also we received a silver award for being ethical, responsible and sustainable, so the top 2 in the county as well. And that gives you kind of a snapshot as to where we are in our business journey and what we're really about. So how would I kind of explain what's been going on? Well, we moved back to the West Country in November 2019, having decided we wanted to have a lifestyle change, be in a beautiful part of the world, and share this part of the world with tourists in a responsible way. So we set about renovating the farm. Has a number of cottages, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 bedroom place on the edge of Dartmoor, and we work with local tradesmen to do that. And we reopened 4 weeks before the COVID pandemic first closed us down in March 2020. So it's meant that the last year has been a real roller coaster, but one that's been full of learnings. And I ultimately feel that what we've learned and taken away from it, as well as what we originally wanted to put into this kind of business, has allowed us to do something which is a little bit different and will hopefully attract the next generation of visitors to Dartmoor, or staycationers as people tend to put it at the moment. So that gives you a bit of background.
What a journey 4 weeks before COVID. Yeah. That probably wasn't in your business plan.
It wasn't, but you know what? We've worked in corporate life for 25 years, and when you're in a corporate, I used to make sure things like things that are going to affect your reputation or affect your business performance, that you're prepared for it. You always put scenarios in, and you know what? It was a blind spot, actually, and now it's certainly something that we would have in our plans for the future. And do you know what? Whilst last year was tough, we still made it work. And I would actually say, if this kind of thing happens and we have one bad business year in every 10, then actually it's still a really good business to have. If you look at any kind of business, they have good years, they have bad years, as those which go through like a cycle. So if we plan, say, for one in every 10 years, that's good. And actually, it's probably only going to happen once in a lifetime.
Do you know what? During the last 12 months we've been running this podcast, Rich and I, one of the things we talk about all the time to businesses is have a plan. You know, if you don't have a plan, you can basically plan to fail. And one of the things you just said there really resonated with me with this, you know, the blind spot, and, you know, planning a bad year, you know, every decade, so that you know that sits in your business model. It's because I suppose if you think back to the last 5 years for businesses, and you think about the pandemic, then before that we had Brexit, and if you go back even 10 years, you know, then we had the financial crisis. So you're absolutely right. There's been bumps in the road for business all the way along, isn't there? So, but I'm keen to explore with you, Marcus, you talked about your awards, and you talked about your vision for the business, and, you know, coming back from corporate life and moving back to you know what you and I know is such a beautiful county. You both live and are privileged to live and work here. But talk to me about how you prioritize your guest experience, and why that's important to you.
So it started with the brand, really. What was it that our brand was going to stand for? What is it that we stand for? And how could we translate that into a customer journey? So from the moment people arrive to the moment that they leave us and beyond, because people continue interacting with us on social media and hopefully rebook. And if I go back to what the brand is all about, you can see it behind me, and it's almost a bit like an old school stamp of approval. And then it features the imagery of the shape of the cottages or the courtyard, which you can see behind me. And that kind of college style stamp of approval came from an idea which we thought about, which we called flashbacking. So not backpacking, but flashbacking. So when you were kids, you might have been taken on holiday to somewhere like Devon and Cornwall, probably stayed in a caravan, it probably rained most days, but you were still dragged to the beach come what may, and you'd have sand in your sandwiches. And we said, you know what, we want people to come here as adults, flash back to some of those things which they can perhaps romanticize now about their childhood, and give their families and their friends and their work associates a new version, which is more at market, more luxury, anticipates their kind of technology needs, but actually goes back to the core of what this place is all about, which is the stunning natural scenery, a slightly slower pace of life, and a place where you can create memories.
The key thing you just said there for me, Marcus, is two key things. You talked about, you know, the guest journey when they arrive, and, you know, what they're expecting, and again, one of the things that we shout loudly about at Insight 6 is the measurement of that client journey is so important to make sure that every touch point is right. But the last thing you said there about creating memories is crucial, as you'll know, to creating the advocacy, the future return visits, the advocacy for your brand, you know, the recommendations for that. So what is it you do to create memories at Blackadon?
So you could start with even the booking process, and I'll talk about some of the things we actually do when guests are here. But if you start with the booking process, People might find you through a third-party listing site. They might find you direct through your own website. But the most important thing, wherever they come from initially, is speed of response. When we moved to the area, we did our own mystery shopping, as you'd expect, and we've stayed in a number of places here and overseas. And if somebody doesn't respond to you quickly and accurately, you automatically go down kind of the pecking order. So it's really important to us that we respond quickly and accurately, and it has helped us improve our conversion rates. We know, for example, that Sundays, especially Sunday evenings, are our busiest time for inquiries and bookings. So we need to make sure that we're available to respond pretty much as soon as somebody comes through. So that's the starting point. We then also, and this was COVID driven, the government guidelines were that you shouldn't really be doing face-to-face check-ins, and you should limit your interaction face-to-face with customers. So we thought, well, what do we actually do? And we know, as a next generation of staycationer ourselves, that sometimes you like a little bit of anonymity. You don't necessarily want to go and walk up and see somebody face-to-face anyway, and you use your technology. So people, when they book with us, they get an email, they get a WhatsApp message, or they can have an SMS message and we can phone them. So we know approximately 90% of our guests use WhatsApp now. So in addition to sending confirmations by email, we'll send a message on WhatsApp, we'll send video links to our cottages, we'll send a link to our website and invite them to follow us on social media. We also invite people to say, between now and your arrival stay, if you want to get in touch, feel free to drop us a message and we will we'll respond. Within all that other stuff that we send, we also provide a good stay guide. So traditionally, when you would turn up at a hotel or a guest house or a place of self-catering accommodation, the first thing you do is you open a folder that's on a desk or on the dining table in there. We don't put one in the cottages. It's electronic, and we send it to people as soon as they book. So they can find out all about the cottage, they can find out all about the tourist attractions that are here, and they can look at the things that we recommend doing. So they can start planning, they can start getting excited, and they can start creating memories as soon as they make a booking with us.
That's such an important point, isn't it? Because in reality, when a lot of the excitement of going, a staycation or going abroad or whatever it is doing your research in the first place. Think, what am I going to do actually when I'm there? So what a great tip. In terms of you talked about the conversion rate there. You talked about conversion in what you just said, Marcus. All those things you're doing to create that engaging journey, is that really driving conversion for you? I mean, forward bookings, how are you doing?
Well, this year is an exceptional year, and I think if you talk to most people in the hospitality business, they're going to have a good season, mainly because it's shorter, and also because they've got a number of people that have carried over their bookings from last year, not to mention the government advising that foreign holidays might not be an option. That has pros and cons, because places like Devon and Cornwall don't just attract domestic tourists. We actually attract visitors in from Europe, and actually last year about 50% of our clients should have been from Europe and obviously couldn't come, and the same might happen this year. But yeah, bookings are looking really good for this year. If I talk about repeat rates of business or guests coming back to us from our short season last year, 60% of guests have rebooked for this year.
Wow.
Which we are so happy about. We also know that we've got some other big bookings which can't take place until at least mid-June, depending on the government roadmap going to plan, because we've got a 10-bedroom place which can sleep 24 people, and that's used for things like wedding groups, multi-generational family parties, retreats, corporate planning days, and those things should happen throughout the year, and we pushed ourselves quite hard on that, and if we'd have been able to open in February, our big cottage would have now been full every week of the year apart from Christmas week.
Wow.
And when we reopened then in June, that one all being well. It'll be free again. It's currently booked every week apart from Christmas at the moment, which we will book that shortly. So it shows you the appetite is there. It is an exceptional year. We know that repeat bookings are high at 60%, and we hope to build on that for future years. I also think, you know, this year people are talking about it being about staycations and people then going to want to get on a plane next year. I do agree with that, but I also believe that people are more cognizant about seeing the beautiful places they've got in their own country. I also know that we will hopefully reopen to guests from all over the world. We've got a big group due in from America next year, for example, that are coming letterboxing on Dartmoor. They were due last year, they were due this year, and now they've rescheduled. So I do believe the pipeline will remain strong. And the corporate bookings where people haven't been allowed to travel and gather, there's going to be an immense need to bring teams and people back together somehow. We've got used to a new world of Zoom, but we know it's not quite the same thing when you need to build relationships, build rapport, and come up with new plans and ideas or have time for reflection. So I believe the profile of client might change a bit. So we'll get repeats, but then some of the people that don't come back, we'll fill those with some of those other kind of pieces of business that I've mentioned.
So a really optimistic outlook, which is fantastic. And I think, you know, the other thing that I'm curious about, Marcus, is you talk, part of you talked about your sustainability award, and we know certainly in the last 12 months, the way in which, you know, you hear this phrase that you build back better from the government a lot of the time, and there's a real focus now on, you know, when we do go back to whatever the new normal looks like, that, you know, we do that in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way. What have you been doing at Blackadon to increase the impact of the environmental credentials that you've got?
Sure. So I have to say the principles were here before we were. So there were some solar panels, there were some water tubes which heat water up on the farmhouse, and there was a borehole which we had to do some work on to get to the required standard. But sustainability isn't just about those things which are very visible and very obvious. So for us, when we were looking to renovate, it was about working with suppliers who could justify that their linen and towels are coming through a responsible and ethical supply chain. It was about knowing that where possible, our furniture and our beds especially, and our beds are the same beds which are used by leading 5-star hotels, that they were made in the UK. It also meant that we wanted to work with local tradespeople. So when we looked to get support for putting in new walls, ceilings, turning the place upside down, ultimately, we needed to find local people that could source locally and really help us. When it came to things like kitchens, a lot of kitchens just get thrown away at the end of the day. And even when new kitchens are put in, they're not necessarily sourced from responsible sources, but you can, if you ask most of the kitchen suppliers, find out what percentage of materials are sustainably sourced, and our kitchens are 70% sustainably sourced. All the lighting has now been replaced to being low energy LEDs. We've introduced bees onto Dartmoor from here, so we've got a beekeeper now that's brought bees here. And even a quirky little thing, we have miniature donkeys, and they cut down the amount of petrol we need to use because they help mow the lawns. So rather than mowing the lawns weekly, we might only have to do it every 3 weeks when they can't keep up. So there's lots of things which we've been looking to do. And I'd go beyond environmental as well. In terms of sustainable and ethical, we've also targeted, proactively targeted groups which might be underrepresented at staying at places like this. So people with accessibility needs, people which come from underrepresented parts of the community, or people with disabilities. We have proactively reached out to them and made little adjustments to make sure that they can have a great holiday too.
It's amazing. There's, you know, when you start to listen to what you've created at Blackadon, you know, not just focusing on your journey from booking through to the experience that they receive, you've really looked at, you know, the things that are going to be important to your guests, but also making sure you're accessible to many different types of guests as well. Marcus, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today, and I really thank you for your time. And I know our listeners will get a huge amount of confidence, particularly those in the hospitality industry, about what you've talked about today. How do people find out more about Blackadon? How do they get in contact with you?
Okay, so if people want to get in touch with us, the easiest way is through our website. It's cottages@blackadonfarm.co.uk. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. People just have to search Cottages at Blackadon Farm to find us. We're also on TripAdvisor under the same handle as well.
Amazing. Marcus, thank you for your time. It's been lovely to talk to you today. Good luck with the season. I know it looks as if you have an amazing one. And yeah, thanks for spending some time on customer experience R&R.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you what, where do I book? In fact, I would book, but they're full up because I went in and had a look. Marcus, can we get in anyway, seeing as you're on our podcast? Any favors you can do us, you know, let us be able to book.
I'm sure.
Really want to go down and experience
award winners as well.
I know, it's good, that, isn't it?
What do you reckon then? What did you think?
Well, wow. In terms of impact and customer readiness, are you customer ready? Are you putting in place the certain things that make a difference for your customers when they come? Because if you put customers at the heart of what you do, it'll make a big impact. Is there, you know, impact zone? Absolutely. Understanding what the customer is requiring, thinking about how they might want it in different ways, not just sticking to the traditional, you know, the idea of not just having a pamphlet full of, or a folder full of pamphlets about what you're going to do when you arrive on the table. You know, it's, well, we've sent it to you previously, we've used technology, we're using it in a different way, and that side of things I picked up on a lot, really. It's they've clearly thought about things, and going beyond that into the whole sustainability piece is really, really great to hear, because it really matters to clients and customers. Doesn't matter what business you do. I mean, clearly from a hospitality point of view, it's really important because it's physically there, you can see it all. But it's the same with any business. You know, where do you get your paper from? Where do you source your paper? Who does various things for your company? Who cleans your windows? Is it a local company? All of these things, environmental and sustainability angle is really important. So I thought that was fantastic to hear about, particularly in such a gorgeous area. You know, it does make a big difference. So yeah, it's the thought that goes into it and the planning piece. I don't know about you, but the start of the conversation there about you know, we didn't see this coming, pandemic. Well, nobody did. But his then point about, but actually it's given us a bit of a kick, so it's now in our plans. So that 10-year cycle, something's going to occur, whether it's a pandemic, it's a crash, as you said, in terms of money, something is going to occur. Put it into the planning piece, and make sure that you can sort of cover it in the rest of the years. And it sounds like they've got that sorted. So yeah, real pleasure to speak to. And flashbacking, what did you think of flashbacking?
What a cracking term. I loved it. I loved it. The key, there's a couple of things that really stuck with me after that interview. The first one was, and I mean this in a really constructive way. Hallelujah, a business that really gets it and understands the importance of the client journey. And you know, just before we started recording, Marcus was talking to me about, you know, how he and Ryan, you know, when there's an issue, they call it that they'll have a board meeting the next day about it, and that, you know, that's their sort of code for talking it through and finding a solution. And you know, what was really evident was the way they've designed the business has all been around what customers would expect. You know, what would you expect? You know, I'd expect that, you know, I have good tech when I arrive. You know, it always makes me laugh when you look at holiday accommodation and they list Wi-Fi as you know, as an extra, and you're like, hang on, you know, what century are they in? Because you know that fundamentally now is just a given, you know. And you know, the other sort of, and this is why they're in the impact zone. They thought in he talked to me about sort of the different people that are using using the cottage as a retreat, but they've thought in the minutest detail about actually if there's a big group here, you know, we can get, I think they call them, I think it's Devon, which are a Dartmoor based company that can come in and put a chef in to cook your dinner for you. You know, there's a games room. They've even thought about, you know, if it's a wet day, here's what to do in Exeter, here's what to do in Plymouth, but not in a way of, you know, here's a few, as you say, here's a few pamphlets. They've written blogs on it. You know, you go to their website, there are blogs on the new 40-odd million museum in the centre of Plymouth. You know, so they've really thought through, as a guest, if I was here, what would be important to me. And actually, what was really impressive was, I think he said that 60% of those who were with them last year, who were able to stay with them in 2020, had rebooked. 60% had rebooked for the following year. You know, so clearly that you know, the recommendation and the fact that, you know, I want to come back again, you know, I didn't get to do it all, you know, I'm back again. And you know, he was really clear on the direction, the continued direction of the business needs to be all around the client journey. What was really interesting though was you can tell that both Ryan and Marcus put their heart and soul into that business. And, you know, he talked at length before and during the interview about, you know, people come back to see us. They want to, you know, they want to see, you know, we're part of the experience now as well, because, you know, we've made friends, we've built a rapport. And again, you know, we talk about that a lot, don't we? About, you know, the fact that lots of small businesses, you know, the MD or the owner, they are the business, they are the face of it, they're building the rapport. So that's given them another challenge now about, you know, how do they take time off. But I have no doubt they will find a very smart way of either leaving a, you know, virtual hello from them or welcome or whatever it is, so that, you know, people get to see Marcus and Ryan. Well, you know, what do you think about the sustainability stuff? Because I thought that was really on, you know, really on the button as well. Build back better and all that stuff. Yeah,
well, yeah, absolutely. It's a critical part. We know that they are creating an experience. An experience is influenced by a lot of different factors. You know, whether it is the venue, the people, the building, the type of sheets on the beds, the type of beds where they're made, all of these things add up to create that great experience. So we've got, and I know I am more sustainably aware than I've ever been. Because I know, you know, do I want something that has been imported miles and miles and miles and miles, or would I like to know that the wardrobe has been crafted by a local carpenter just down the road? Absolutely, it's great. It adds into that whole experience piece. So, you know, for all those pieces of, yeah, well, we've won an award, or we came second in an award, tick a box. No, it's not about that. Because it all comes together and all adds into that big experience where Marcus is there. He's part of the experience. The quality of the bed is another part of the experience. And these all drive people to, and he spoke about his conversion rates, you know, that speed of response on their booking. You know, people are saying, right, brilliant. Yeah, great. They've come back to me straight away. It must mean they're interested in me as a customer. As soon as I've put a request in for something and it takes 3 or 4 days to come back, too late, I've gone somewhere else. You know, so it's all part of the experience, which is really interesting, more so I think than the sustainable on its own.
Yeah, and I love the fact that even thought down to the impact of the lawnmower. So they've got a couple of miniature donkeys.
I want to go and see the donkeys. Absolutely.
But just on your point around speed of response, because we talk about that a lot as well, don't we? I put an inquiry in for some accommodation in the October half term. I did that 3 days ago. I am still waiting for a response. And what was really interesting was Marcus said, we know that on a Sunday evening, that's our busiest time for inquiries. They knew, you know.
It's based on tech. You know, there's a lot of stuff you can automate. There's a lot of stuff that you can actually, you know, it doesn't need to be hard work. It doesn't need to be thinking, oh, you know, put a finger up. Well, which direction is the wind blowing today? Which way are the customers going to come in? Who are they? We're not sure. We can find out. There's lots of ways of doing it for multiple businesses. So there's almost no excuse these days. You know, as we've said, and I've said a number of times, good enough isn't. And clearly Marcus and these guys are demonstrating that, you know, they are going beyond good. They're going to great. And it's making an impact on the business. This is the key thing. It impacts the commercials. We can see conversion rates have gone up. It's a bit of a no-brainer. Happy customers, going to stay around, going to rebook, going to tell other people how brilliant it is.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we talk about it time and time again, but it's great to be able to speak to those sort of organizations, isn't it? Because it just shows that they're out there, and they are within that 20% of people who are outside of the awareness zone that we spoke about a few weeks ago. Most organizations are aware that they should be doing more, and they're aware that it can make a difference, but they don't do it. These guys are in that impact zone. They're making a difference, really are. So it's great to hear from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our chat again. It's been a great one this week.
Yep.
So yeah, happy Easter, everybody. If you're watching this after Easter, I hope you had a great Easter. And next week, we've got another great interview lined up. We're going to be chatting to Dave Meadows, who runs an animation business in Plymouth and Southampton, and they're going to talk about how animation is changing the way of communication with clients. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Farm cottages, holidays to animation. Is there nothing we can't cope with and cover on this podcast? I astound myself on a weekly basis.
I tell you. Well, I'd love to stop talking, but as you can see, the weather behind me, cider is calling. So I've got to go.
Enjoy.
Like, share, and comment.
Yes, absolutely. Speak to you soon. Cheers.